Well, hi again. This is Jan at Learn English with Be Global, and today we're going to learn about how to speak English fluently and confidently. You've heard it said that English is a work in progress. Have fun with it. I hope you know that. English is people disagree about how you should speak English, so I hope that you know you don't have to worry about certain parameters in spoken English. Fluency has to do with communicating, okay? Not perfection. So, take a deep breath and relax, and actually we're going to talk today about the circus. Why the circus? Well, I just chose that because it's a fun, short word that will help us grow in our navigation of being confident when we speak English. So if you want to get out a piece of paper or something, write it like this, across. These letters will help you remember our main idea. So, what does the first letter stand for? Well, the first letter, C, stands for confidence comes before fluency. Okay? I have up here, fluency does not equal grammatical perfection. Okay? No one ever said fluency means speaking English perfectly. That's not true. It means speaking English with ease. So I want you to move toward fluency by gaining confidence, but you've got to have the confidence first. Know that there is no native English speaker anywhere that speaks English flawlessly, without errors or mistakes. So, the C, confidence, comes before fluency. The I stands for ignoring the grammar police. You know who the grammar police are, right? They're the people that are always correcting you, and they may even just be in your head. You're like, oh, I said that wrong, or just forget them. Don't worry about those people. These people should not stop you from trying hard. They don't have any power over you. Okay? So ignore them. Ignore the grammar police. Outside, or maybe the ones in your head. So I have been teaching international students for over 20 years in the U.S., okay? The ones that I remember well are not the ones that spoke English perfectly. They are the ones that tried, that smiled, that had fun, and these are the ones that made a lot of mistakes. But they learned from their mistakes, or maybe they never learned from their mistakes, and it doesn't matter, because they became almost part of our family, because they had such a great attitude, and they just kept trying, and they had fun, and they knew it wasn't the end of the world if they didn't say something exactly right. And in fact, I can remember them better because of their attitude. So fight through the fear of making mistakes, okay? Learn to laugh at yourself. I know sometimes that's hard, but when we laugh at ourselves, it gives other people permission to correct you and not be afraid that they're going to hurt you. And hopefully they will correct you gently, but if you're like, oh, how do I say that, right? Then they'll say, okay, this is how you should really say this phrase. So let's go back to the circus. We've got the C. It stands for confidence comes before fluency. All right, so we're trying to talk about confidence here. The I stands for ignore the grammar police. Just ignore them. R stands for recognize what motivates you. All right. Why do we try something that's hard, like learning another language? Something is motivating us, right? You care enough, if you're motivated enough to maybe even look a little silly sometimes, then you know your motivation is really high, right? And that is great because once you figure out what you love, then that motivation will carry you, and that hopefully will bloom into English fluency because you're willing to do the daily work of learning new things. So it's a big deal. Motivation is a big deal. Recognize what motivates you, and I can't figure that out for you. So later on, I'm going to be giving you some tips on fluency, and maybe you're like, hurry up, I just want to hear. If you're not motivated, these tips aren't going to matter. So you've got to figure out what motivates you, and not just what motivates you today, but for the long haul, as we say, the long road. Okay, so back to the circus. Confidence comes before fluency. Okay, ignore the grammar police. Don't worry about grammar. Don't worry about making mistakes. Recognize what motivates you. Okay, you're going to need that. The next C is to call people who encourage you. Speaking English confidently should really take place in the context of a positive community. And that will improve your confidence because, as I reminded you, confidence comes before fluency. And also, you remember, you need to ignore who? The grammar police, right? Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Recognize what motivates you. C, call people who encourage you. The U stands for understand that we are all moving at different speeds. If you have had a bad English day, that doesn't define you. All right, remember that. You may need to write that down. We all have bad language days, but that doesn't define who you are. So don't compare yourself with someone else, okay? So, final time here at the circus is you gain confidence first before fluency. You ignore the grammar police. Recognize what motivates you. Call people who encourage you. Understand that we're all starting at different places. We're all going at different speeds. It's okay. The S is start small. You gain confidence by starting small, right? Set little goals, and then these little accomplishments, they build on each other, right? That happens for everything we do, especially for language learners. So on to our fluency tips. Number 1, set a time to practice every day. If you set this time, you will turn it into a habit, and that will be something that you go to, and you know that you'll be practicing English every day. But before we jump into the rest of these tips, I want you to think about how you learn. Because really, if you try these tips that I'm going to give you, and you don't know how you learn best, it's going to be more frustrating. So for brevity's sake, let's just talk briefly about 4 different kinds of learners, okay? So we have the visual, the auditory, the kinesthetic, the doer, and the reading and writing learner. So think about which one you might be most naturally. You may be a lot of these, and probably are, but if you think about whether you're visual, auditory, kinesthetic, or reading and writing, as we go through the rest of these tips, that will help you increase your fluency, hopefully to speed up your fluency. Well, so you've already set a time to practice every day, right? So what are you going to do during this practice time? Well, I suggest that you practice your English 15 minutes every day. Some kind of short phrase, and maybe you can pick that out from a good book, a grammar book, or some book that has the correct way to say it. So practicing that phrase will be good for you. And just doing 15 minutes is just a small, reasonable goal. All right, it's like the S in circus we talked about, starting small, and you can do 15 minutes a day. Well, what's practicing a phrase 15 minutes a day going to look like for you? How can we get that discipline to move from your brain to actual conversation? Well, if you're a visual learner, you may need to find a phrase that you can see as a picture or a movie, TV, something like that. Some picture that represents what that phrase looks like, and practice the phrase while you're looking at that so it can stick in your mind longer, okay? If you're an auditory learner, if you like to learn, it's easier for you to learn just to listen to something, you could talk about that phrase to someone else. You could also listen to a short audio lecture about that phrase while you're going to school or while you're working out. You could also just record your voice saying that phrase over and over and listen to it. And that could be how you spend that 15 minutes. Are you a reading and writing learner? Well, experts will say that you probably work best in quiet areas, and you do well to write out that phrase several times. Eventually you're going to need to say the phrase, and we will get to that, but when you write it out, that will be helpful for you. You probably enjoy flashcards, and those will be great for your style of learning. If you are a kinesthetic learner, that means you like to do things or feel things, those flashcards, if you write them out and you have those, make those into a game. Make it fun for you, and you can learn while you're physically doing something. You may even take the phrase and do a dance to it or something. If the phrase is, I like to dance, well, maybe you dance while you do it. Or if you like to cook, or if the phrase is, I like to cook, then you can cook while you say the phrase, I like to cook. So, do you see what I mean? Becoming fluent takes work, but if you can link it to some way that you, something that you know how to do naturally, a way that you learn naturally, then maybe you won't want to give up and you'll keep trying to do that, okay? Okay, tip number 3. Find someone with whom you can practice. After you've made it your habit to set a time every day to practice, and you've decided to practice 15 minutes every day, find someone with whom to practice. And remember, just go for it. Don't worry about making a mistake. Just keep trying. So the 4th fluency tip I have for you is to form your schedule around practicing English. So what do I mean by that? Well, most people are very busy, right? So schedule a time of English practice with someone over a meal. You both have to eat, so just decide that for that one meal, maybe once a week, maybe more times a week, all you're going to do is speak English while you're eating together. I think that's a great way to do that. Or you may find someone who likes to exercise on a regular basis. Most people do. And so if you can just form your schedule around just exercising with that person, whether it be walking or playing some kind of game, and practicing English, only English, while you're doing that, then you're not having to set up this separate time in your schedule to open a book and work on your English. It's just a part of natural life. And so you'll learn some of those skills and increase your fluency. If you have friends who go to church every Sunday, or if they are participate in weekly community activities, ask if you can join them. Many of my students have told me they improved their English by going to church once a week, because at church we read, we speak, we listen, and we sing in English. So you're getting almost all of the learning styles in just a couple hours. Also, they have said the Bible is a great text for proper grammatical English, and so they can count on that if they want to learn how to say something right. That's just a thought. So, number 4, form your schedule around practicing English. Tip number 5, identify objects in English. What does that mean? It means find a post-it note, write out oven, and put it on your oven. Mirror, put it on your mirror. Identify everything in your house that you can in English. So you are surrounded by English words. When you wake up in the morning, you see them. When you go to bed at night, you see them. And then, once you have become comfortable and you have memorized these nouns, then you can add a verb in front of them. Choose any verb you like. You know, we like our verbs and our nouns together, so you can practice them. So you're immersed in English, and then that will help you begin to start thinking in English, and that also will increase your fluency. Tip number 6, use good media resources like you're doing right now. Watch English television or English movies, or listen to English music. And choose those media options based upon your goals. And what I mean is, if your goal is to be a professional businessman or woman, then choose those media options that have vocabulary related to your career field. And then that will help you in the interview. So think that through, because I don't want you to waste good brain memory on information that is not helpful and might even be confusing to you as you're trying to remember things for a good interview or a promotion or something like that. Just a final tip, don't learn profanity in English if it's not going to help you achieve your goal. Save space in your brain for phrases that will help you achieve your ultimate objective. That's just a final thought. Now, the good news for you is that you have already done fluency tip number 6 by watching this educational English video. And I hope you've learned some more about speaking confidently and fluently in English. Thanks for watching. And if you like this video, hit subscribe and leave a comment below.